So good afternoon everybody and welcome to today's Shaderlight V2.1 launch webinar. Okay, so to take you through what we have, we've got Martin, the Senior Technical and Support Manager, and myself, Patrick Grant. As always, great to see everybody here, and we'll get started as soon as we can. Right, so it's been all go, go, go here at Shaderlight HQ, and true to our promise of Shaderlight continual development, it's only a few months since the release of V2, and we now have V2.1. And it's the features that we've got in 2.1 that we're actually going to go through today. We always listen to what our customers would like to see, and as such, these ideas and features have actually come from you, the community. The first thing we're going to demo is the new light fixture library. It's been created in conjunction with Visa Lighting, one of the world's leading decorative light fixture manufacturers. Following this, Martin will be taking through our newest material. It's proving to be very, very popular so far, and that's frosted glass. A couple of other developments in 2.1 include an autosave function, which is obviously incredibly handy to have, and it means no more lost renders. And on top of this, we have some quite impressive GI improvements for those internal scenes you guys are working on. Martin's going to be taking through these in just a few moments. As always, guys, if you've got any questions, please send them over using the text chat box. It really helps develop the webinar, and we love to hear your feedback and things like that. So, yeah, questions over to that box. That'd be great. If it doesn't get answered with us in the webinar, bear with us. We've got a record of all these, and we'll get back to you on them. And, of course, for joining us today, there's going to be a discount announced at the end of the webinar. That's about enough from me. I'll hand you over to Martin, and he'll show you the best of these features. Martin.
Great, thanks very much, Patrick. And as always, I'd like to extend the welcome to everyone. Looking at the list of people we have, it's great to see some new names, and particularly welcome to some of the familiar faces that willing to spend their time with us for the next half an hour or so. Okay, as Patrick was saying, I want to show you some of the new features that we've put into 2.1 and just how these work. And I'm also going to go over some of the old questions that, they come up every now and again. So hopefully I can run through those as we go. And exactly as Patrick mentioned, please ask away, ask any questions while we're running through. We really love it to be interactive. And, exactly as developing the software, we really want to listen to you guys, and hopefully we can get all your questions answered.
Keeps us on our toes, Martin?
Definitely. So what we'd like to do here, I just have this simple scene, and I'm going to show you the new lighting features that we've set up. Now, the light library models that we have set up for Shaderlight, they're from Visa Lighting, and so these are models that can be purchased in real life. So you can bring these models into your scene, and so ultimately these could actually be used. So to bring these in, we have a new option under our plugins menu, and we have our light fixture library here. And this opens up the your browser and takes you immediately to the Shaderlight light fixtures library. And we can see in the warehouse here, if I go into my Visa lighting fixtures, we can see all the lights that we've put up so far, and we're going to be increasing these. There's many, many lights that we want to get sort of up on here. So we can see all of these, and what you can do as well is, if we have a look in here, you can just see the small rendered image on the bottom there. So I can download these models, and you can download them to your computer. And the good thing is, I've then gone into my components and I've set these up as a local favorite. So I've got my Visa Lighting library here. So I've saved these to all to my computer. And so I can just use my components library now, and I can pick a light in here, and I can say, well, I'd like that particular light. And we can see it will snap to whatever faces. So, we've done that work for you to set all the model up. So I'm just going to place it on that wall there. And we can see this brings in that component. But what we've done for these lighting components is we've actually set these up with the correct lighting information, the correct material information as well. So this is how you will bring it in. And if I zoom into this light here, we can start to see that we actually have the lighting pattern around the side here. Now Visa Lighting have worked with us, and we've got the IES files, which are the virtual lighting profiles. So each light you bring in, it gives this realistic effect from that light. So that brings that in straight away, and also with the materials as well there. So it's nice and simple to copy that, and we can bring in more and less lights as we go. Now this room, we now have these two lights in here as well. Now previously, to light the room, I've actually brought in another Visa Lighting light fitting for the ceiling there. And we can really see now, as we look up the top, we can see that detail in our material and the light as it goes through there. So you can start to see, how this has been set up. And this kind of sort of prompted us to look at the new material regarding the frosted glass as well. But while I'm in here, this is a question that I know does come up regularly regarding exposure levels and the light settings in the room. So I'm going to go into my Shaderlight render settings here, and I can see at the moment I have auto exposure turned on, and I've just slightly turned it down just so my room isn't quite as bright. If I set this to 0, we can see that's how bright the room is just using the auto exposure. So what the auto exposure does is it works very similar to your digital camera. So when you have your image, it's looking at the different light levels in the room, and it's saying, well, okay, we want to be at a particular level, and it will set the exposure to be that sort of number to balance that out for you, to give you that. Now we can see my exposure at 0. It's quite bright on that one. So that's just why I turned that down 1 there. Now you can turn auto exposure off, and this is a good way of lighting a room. And as soon as I turn auto exposure off there, we can now see, we can literally see the bulbs inside the lights there. Excuse me. And what's going on here is that the exposure is set to 0 now. So we now have our manual exposure running. Now exposure 0 is roughly the exposure level that you would use for a daylight render. So you can imagine the SketchUp sunlight is a lot brighter than just using these 3 lights in the scene. So that's why at exposure 0 you do get sort of those darker render there. And depending on how many lights you have in the scene, the type of lights you have in the scene, an interior render really is going to be anywhere sort of between 4 and 6, but ultimately we give you these options so that you can set that up to be however you want it to be, so the levels you require. So we can then start to see, as we looking at our light here, you get a little more detail from that, or we can go for a really bright room if I turn the exposure up there. So using the manual exposure, it really gives you the ability to control that. Now, this is the question, that particularly comes up when you're using lighting in a room, and we get the question on support where people say that they adjust the lighting levels. Say, if I bring in a point light here, and if I'm just going to place that on that wall. I'm not, just an example there. So we've got that point light on the wall. Now, if I turn on auto exposure, I set that back to 0 or -1. The question we get asked is, okay, so you want to make that light brighter. So if I set that to 500, it only gets a slight amount brighter. If I set that to 10,000, again, there's only a slight difference in that effect. Now what's happening here is now 10,000 candela, this is the equivalent of about 100 watt light bulbs. But the auto exposure is now taking that into account and saying, well, wow, this is very bright. So it turns down the exposure of the scene. So now, we can have that manual exposure. And now if I set that sort of between 125, it makes a lot of difference. So, that auto exposure and using the exposure, it's just well worth understanding those there as well. But yeah, the Visa Light library, that's going to be growing there. And if I just open that again, like I said, from the plugins menu in Shaderlight for SketchUp, we have the light fixture library there. We have a number of lights in here, ceiling lights and wall lights, and there are lamps in there as well. So if people have particular requests for styles of lights, please let us know. Like I said, we really want to give you the type of thing that you're after, the ones that you want. So yeah, the Visa lighting fixtures, that's something that is really useful, and particularly containing that lighting information.
It really is how we got to where we have now with Shaderlight, is from speaking to you guys, getting what you want to see, and then putting it in. This is a product for you, and we need your feedback to make it even better.
Okay, now as I mentioned, if I look at one of these lighting fittings here, now with the exposure here, we can just start to see a little bit of light pattern on the side there. But if I turn this exposure down, we can start to see how we've got this frosted glass on the outside of our light fitting here. Now this was material that had been requested, and with the light fittings, we thought this would be an ideal time to launch this material. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into a different scene here, and this just gives me the ability to be able to show you what the type of differences we see here. Now I'm just going to select always on top for Shaderlight here, and that just means that ultimately we can look in SketchUp and see what's going on, without keep sending Shaderlight to the back here. So we can see here that I've got a simple room set up, and if you can see in the glass reflection there, we have a window at the back here, and we've got a skylight portal. So we're using GI, we're using our sort of natural lighting here from our lighting environment. And at the moment, our material here, and we've just got this set to transparent thin glass, so we can see the reflections. And I've set Susan up here, in just our sort of 3 positions against the glass, so we can see the different type of glass effects that we have as well. So the new material that we have thick frosted glass, and we also have this glowing frosted glass as well, and we're going to look at those. Now the first thing to understand is the difference between thin glass and thick glass. I know, again, we've mentioned this in previous webinars, but if this is something you haven't seen, or you perhaps see the options there, but we can really show it here with our checkers in the background there. If I set my render up now to thick glass, we can now see that our checker pattern has moved here, and we're no longer in line with that wall like we were on the thin glass. The reason for that is that the thick glass setting has a different sort of way that it bends the light. Now, the technical term for this is index of refraction, and the easiest way to explain this is if you look through a glass of water, things on the other side appear to look different. So this is that index of refraction. So we've just set this up to look like thick glass here. So the frosted glass is thick glass as well. So if I turn on the new frosted glass, now it's harder to see, obviously, because of the frosted effect, but you can see where the line of the checker pattern, again, it's where it was before on the thick glass. So the light has bent through that as well. So you've got that thick glass option. And we can now see, where Susan in 3 different positions, depending on how far back she is, gives us that different effect of that using the texture of the glass as we look through here as well. So, just by using it in different positions, and, a lot of you may have seen the render that we put on Facebook and just using that, it can give quite a nice effect and just a different style from that as well. Now, the other materials that we mentioned in here as well, we have the glowing frosted glass. Now, there was different sort of techniques we could use for our lights, and if you put a light behind this frosted glass, the glass would actually glow, disperse the light through the glass. Now, the options that we had, we could create calculations to do this, and but we wanted something that was nice and simple, so we've actually created the materials here, and if I turn on the glowing glass, it just gives it that effect. So it's like that self-illuminating effect of the glowing glass here. And it also helps, it just gives that sort of effect of opacity as well as you go through that. And we've just got different brightnesses here, so if I turn it up to make it a little bit brighter, there we go, it just brightens that up and just gives a different effect for that glass. So that that's our new glowing frosted glass and frosted glass materials.
Has anyone got any questions at all on any of the features so far? Either the fixtures or the frosted glass itself, please send them over. Yeah.
Okay, so so that's our the materials there. Now, we've also mentioned about the autosave, and you may have seen we now have an auto-saved render tab here. Now, what this does is when I have a render and it's completed, so this render, there we go, it's just finished rendering there. When I close down the window, obviously Shaderlight has now gone, which can be a little bit frustrating. And this was something that we did get a few questions about. If we could just make it so that it's saved. But if I look at my tab now, it did save that render, and now I can just use File Save As. So it gives me that option there to actually save that render. Like I said, with we do realise that accidentally closing that down after you've done a render, that did cause a few people some choice words, and that's something we did want to definitely change. So we have changed that on there. So that's that autosave render tab. Okay, now something else that we have also made significant improvements on, as we mentioned, sort of the internal global illumination. And if you saw those images at the beginning, particularly the direct sunlight, this was something that.
Sorry, Martin. Just quickly before you go on onto the next one, just had a quick question come over. When doing an interior scene, interior render, and want to have both natural light coming in but still be able to use the light fixtures, am I able to do this?
Yeah, that's really particularly easy when you look at the exposure levels. This is something that the auto exposure, it tries to compensate for maybe bright sunshine or bright lights. Whereas if you turn off the auto exposure and have that at a manual level, you can really balance that between the two. Now, what I would recommend is, if you have geometry, because a lot of people will put a point light next to a wall and say, well, why doesn't that look very bright in a sunny room? Whereas, I'd see a light bulb. The thing is, you're looking at the glass illuminating with the light bulb. The point light is invisible. It's just shining light from a small point of light. So, that is easy to set up, particularly with that exposure.
Fantastic. Thanks, Martin.
Okay, so I'm just going to choose always on top for this one as well. Now, we've increased the number of Replace Me components in our Replace Me library in the 3D warehouse. Now, I know there's some new faces there, and hopefully you may have seen the Replace Me feature. But, I just want to show you really sort of the power of that Replace Me. So, our car here, this is just a simple component. We can see, it's a simple looking model. And yeah, we're just rendering that car there. But what I can do is, in our plugins menu, I can go into Shaderlight for SketchUp and go into the Replace Me Creator. So I have my car selected there, and I want to choose the option that I would like that car to be a Replace Me model. And I can then browse to a model on my computer, and I can see that I've got this this Ferrari here. And if I choose that model, what I'm doing is I'm saying that, okay, so SketchUp is rendering, or SketchUp has this component in it, but I would like Shaderlight to render this other component. So it's curve proxy model. It's basically saying that we want this to render a more complicated model than appears in SketchUp. Now, the reason why this is really useful, and this is particularly useful for landscape and sort of design, is we know that inside SketchUp, the models, it's good to keep things simple because it helps your model perform better. Whereas this this particular Ferrari model, we can see it's a pretty detailed model, and I've set this up with our materials for Shaderlight, and this is about a 20 megabyte model. So this is something that we did use to test when we developed Replace Me, is that this Ferrari, you could have one of them in your SketchUp window, but then when you started having two, it would really start to cause problems when you wanted to move it, or particularly if you wanted to rotate it. So then you're not really sort of going to get more than that. But with the Replace Me, it's then very simple to take your component, you can move it, you can copy it and scale it as well. So I can just move that car over there, and again, it just then immediately starts rendering the other Ferrari for me. And this doesn't affect the SketchUp performance at all. Okay, so just SketchUp's just catching up with me here. Hopefully that will come back to me.
It's nice that we can render quicker than SketchUp can keep up, Mate?
Exactly. So there we go. Now SketchUp has caught up with me. So I've only got these simple models in my SketchUp window, and we saw how quickly they can be moved as well. So yeah, you can really cause that, and we have some renders, and we've created sort of hundreds of these Ferraris, and another car as well, a McLaren that we've rendered. We've got over 100 of these in a test scene, and SketchUp's fine because you can just create very simple. It could be a cube. It doesn't even need to be a car. So SketchUp really sees the simplified model there. So it really does make life nice and easy on that one. So we've also set up a Shaderlight library as well in the 3D warehouse. So in the warehouse here, if I search for Shaderlight library, now this is a collection. So if I just go into my collections here, so here's my Shaderlight library, and in here we've got our light fixtures, and we also have our Replace Me components as well. And we have trees and people. So these are all 3D people. But I'm going to have a look in our trees as well. Now, previously we've had sort of a smaller number of trees, but we're now expanding on this, and we have a few more pages of trees now. So we've got a few different options of trees, a few sycamore trees and birch trees. So many different options of trees here. And what we can actually do is if I select my oak tree here, and I say, well, I'd like to download the model directly into SketchUp, and this just asks me where I want to place this model. So I've placed my tree in there, and what we now do is that we have the model that's hosted on a server somewhere, and it downloads this model, and it's downloading the full 3D model from the warehouse. So I'm just downloading this model, and the reason it's a little bit slower, the model isn't that huge. It's just purely because we've got an online meeting, so that's using our bandwidth up a little bit here.
Just while that's going on, Martin, when you use a Replace Me component, how do you control the orientation of the model that will be rendered through Shaderlight?
Okay, yeah, that is a really good question, particularly with models from the warehouse. they can be sometimes not always in the correct rotation, and it really is controlled with the origin. So on my tree component that I have here, so this oak tree, if I say edit the component, there's my origin right in the middle of the tree there. So this origin matches the origin of the Replace Me model. And the car was the same. So, you know, that position of the car. Now, if you do take a model from the warehouse, yes, sometimes you do need to be a little bit aware that you may need to move the origin so that it matches. Both models need to basically have the origin in the same place. Okay, so I can see my oak tree that I have in here. And this is just a Face Me component. But if I look from the top, we can really see that. But particularly now in my model, we can start to see we've got this pretty detailed model of a tree. If I zoom right in, we can start to see that, you know, basically we've got a lot of separate geometry for leaves and branches as well. So, you know, we've got a really heavily modeled, you know, tree there. And, you know, we can see that's not affecting things at all. I can just move that tree. So if we want another one over there. Now, the reason that, you know, we have this small symbol on the bottom of the tree here, just with this arrow. And the reason for this is which direction do you want the tree pointing? Because we can actually, if I rotate this, this will rotate the model in our render window. Now, the good thing about this is because it's not a Face Me, it is a 3D model. Those two trees now look in different, you know, orientations. Now, it may only be very subtle, but if you had 20 of those trees in a row, historically, using models from the warehouse, they're very repetitive. It's literally just one after another, after another, after another. So, you know, now just by rotating them, and even, you know, if I scale this a small amount, just this one here, you can now make your trees look a lot more random. And again, this is something that, you know, we have a particular customer in America, Daniel Tal, who's quite a well-known sort of landscape architect in America. And, you know, he's created some awesome models with hundreds of trees and vehicles, you know, which he's never been able to do before. So, you know, for the landscaping side of things, yeah, the Replace Me feature is absolutely brilliant. So, you know, it's really nice and simple to bring those in. And, yeah, you know, we're creating a lot more of those trees all the time. And we're going to be looking at the 3D people as well.
In terms of rendering performance, Martin, is Replace Me and other advanced rendering options in Shaderlight utilizing multi-core technology or more a function of the graphics card?
Okay, now this is has always been an ongoing debate on the forums that I generally join in, and it stops quite quickly. Shaderlight is 64-bit and it is multi-core as well. A lot of people, you know, they say, oh, it can't be because we're working inside of SketchUp. And it's like, no, it really is. You know, we're using 64-bit, we'll use multi-core. So, you know, it's all fine on that one. We're not actually using the graphics card much at all. You know, SketchUp uses the graphics card harder than we do. And, you know, just at this moment in time, again, we get asked the question about GPU acceleration, about using our graphics card to accelerate. There are certain limitations with the technology that, you know, it's just holding rendering back just at that moment. You know, this is why, yeah, renderers, they sort of advertise that they can do it, but, you know, they get held back, and there's a certain feature, and I'm certainly not going to bore everyone with the details of that. But, yeah, there is something there that's, you know, it's just stopping people at the moment. But, yeah, watch this space, really.
Thanks. Can you use, obviously we've got the Shaderlight library, Martin. Can you use any trees from the 3D library, or is it just the ones in the Shaderlight library?
Yeah, the Replace Me, basically what Replace Me is simply saying, okay, you know, replace a component with another component. So if I, you know, I just create a component in front of this car here, so just make a simple cube, and there we go. So I'm going to create that. So what I can do, I'm going to go into my Replace Me Creator, and I want to replace component 1. I should have named it, and that would have come up there. And I can then replace that with any SketchUp model that is on my computer, or I can go onto the warehouse. So if I search on the warehouse, I don't know, let's say toolbox. So, you know, we have the different sort of toolboxes here, and if I choose this snap-on model, and I can go to download it, and I can right-click, and you know, I can copy this address. So if I then paste that into our bar there, so I'm basically saying replace this component with this file from the 3D warehouse. So I'm just going to re-export that just because it needs to go and basically get this model. So that's now going to get this toolbox model, and it's going to download it, and it's going to bring it into my render window. Now the thing is, with regards to this, this is something that, as we mentioned, it may come in a certain position. You know, it may come in at a different scale. So yeah, you know, there we go. That was fairly lucky. That wasn't too bad at all. So yeah, you know, that's great. But the thing is, you know, that's come directly from the warehouse. So this hasn't got any Shaderlight materials like the car that's set up. But you can see that, you know, these models do come immediately from there. So, you know, that's no problem at all. Okay, so yeah, you know, these are the new features, and hopefully, you know, I've gone over a few of the some of the parts before, like Replace Me, and some of the exposure settings that you know, really may help with some of the features there.
That's superb, Martin. It's again, it's been incredibly informative, and hope you've all felt the same way. I'm sure you're raring to go to get away and try those new features that Martin's so eloquently been describing. Just quickly before you do go, for you landscape gardeners, designers, architects out there, we're co-hosting another webinar on the 9th, Thursday the 9th of February, with Dynascape. And this, for more details, please just look onto our Facebook page, or contact us directly at info1@artbps.com, and we'll be able to help you on that. Well, there we go. Thanks again for your attending. If you think of any questions once we're finished, just send them over to support@artbps.com, and we'll get them answered for you. This will be going up on the internet as well, so check our YouTube page for this video and other further demos. That's about your lot. Thanks all for joining us, and happy rendering.